Afternoon, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. I was just reading this speech that John Williams just gave. He's the New York Fed president, and it's not too much unlike what the Fed presidents have been saying. The statements that they've been given for the last week or so, and the big news that come from the Fed recently is that they've changed the way they view inflation, and instead of shooting for a 2% target, they're going to go for an average 2% inflation. So, for example, the last 10 years, they have come in under that 2% inflation target. So they want to try and maintain a higher inflation to make up for the fact that they have been running under that inflation rate for so long so that they can average a 2% inflation. Okay? And now it gets really complicated when you start thinking about it, especially when you get into the argument about what is inflation, because the Federal Reserve has pretty much already created the inflation, and that's the expansion of the money supply and the credit. But when people say inflation out there, they're generally talking about price inflation, which is not really inflation, it's more the symptom of inflation. And the Federal Reserve is well aware of asset prices inflating during this time of money expansion. And they say that they are aware of it and that they are worried about it. But they don't seem to do anything about it, because it just seems to me that every time the Federal Reserve goes and prints a bunch of money, you see those asset prices continue to inflate, continue to bubble up. That's the real estate, that's the stocks, those are the bonds. But you're not really seeing it in the price inflation like they judge it. Now, of course, you and me, if we have like average jobs, we see the price inflation every day, and we see how little our paychecks are buying. So we recognize the inflation, but the Federal Reserve, in the way they judge the price inflation, they don't see it. And they are shooting for a higher inflation rate to make up this price inflation. Remember, inflation has already been created, it's the money, but this higher price inflation, and they're going to shoot for that for a period of time to create the 2% inflation that they have been missing the target on for so long, so that they get this average 2%. The only thing that they do not talk about is how they're going to do it. Now, if you listen to what the Federal Reserve is screaming that needs to be done right now, they are saying that a lot of stimulus needs to be coming out of the government, that the fiscal stimulus packages, fiscal spending needs to be done in order to create the flow of money out there, to get the velocity going, to create the price inflation that they're looking for, because we need the growth inside of the country, and that apparently is good for the economy. But the government is severely in debt right now. And to go into fiscal stimulus means that you need to print up a bunch of money, go deeper into debt. Taxing, you can cut taxes, but we have already cut taxes dramatically. So the effects of cutting taxes are diminishing. And we've noticed that over the last couple of years. They did a substantial amount of corporate tax cutting, which, the economy ran off of for a couple of years, but then it fizzles out. It only lasts so long. So, a couple people walking up here with their dogs. So that's my question that I have, is like, what is it that the Federal Reserve intends on doing in order to stimulate the economy? And they've said it before in the past that they plan on using forward guidance. And forward guidance is just a clever name for telling you a really good lie, or getting you to believe something so that you will react or act upon their words. And it works. They've used it several times. Like, even the idea, they hadn't even got the lending facility for lending to corporations, the buying of corporate debt. I mean, this was like a very big deal for the Federal Reserve. It was all over the news. People were screaming about it, that the Federal Reserve is going to be getting into the corporate bonds, buying corporate debt. It was just like everybody was like screaming at the top of their lungs about the issues of the Federal Reserve buying this debt. And everybody ran in and started front running the Federal Reserve, and they started buying up corporate debt, and the Federal Reserve didn't have to do anything. Just the credible threat of them alone saying that we are going to go in and buy up all these corporate bonds was enough to get the investors to go in there and buy up this corporate debt, and the Federal Reserve didn't have to do anything. Now they did. They eventually did buy up some corporate ETFs and started moving into the junk bonds, but that was just to hold up that credibility. Ultimately, they wanted what they got, and they wanted the investors to front run them. And very much like what's going on today with the prospects of this inflation, we are going to guarantee very much high inflation. It's coming. Government's going to have to do all the fiscal stimulus. And so you think what happens from this? I mean, what do we get? We get the promise of stimulus checks. I don't know how many YouTubers out there have put out there, when's the next stimulus? What can you get? How much is it going to be? When are you going to be able to spend it on? I mean, all these people are talking about the stimulus check that never came. They're still talking about it today, and it still isn't in there. But yet, a lot of people have already spent that money. You see what the government did there? They got you to believe that you were going to get the stimulus check, and if you believe that you're going to get it and you are very much confident, then you'll go out there and spend the money ahead of time thinking that you'll get this check in later to make up for the money that you're spending today. They got you to go out there and spend your money. You see how that happened? Same thing with this inflation. If they scare you enough with this inflation, if they guarantee you the inflation is coming, they're going to, not only is it going to come, it's going to come hot. It's going to come hotter than you were expecting. What will you do? You got to go spend your money. Go out there and get it into the stock market. Get it into something that is going to protect you from a weakening dollar, from inflation, from price inflation, from everything going up in price. Get rid of your dollars. So now, what do they get? They get their stimulus out of it. They get the people to go out there and start spending their money. Buy it before you lose it. You know, what is it that the Fed has? The Fed has very few, other than printing up money and spending it on stuff and buying things, buying stocks, buying bonds, buying whatever out there. I mean, they already have a lending facility for just about every single corner of the financial market. If there is a place that money gets loaned, the Federal Reserve has set up a lending facility to back it up, so that there is no way that anybody who goes to try and get a loan is not denied just because of the credit markets being frozen. They are not going to allow it. They are going to print up money and backstop every single corner of the financial market. So they have no tools. They just have this printing press. There is nothing that they can do to create the growth to come back to the United States when you spend more than you earn. And that's what's taking place right now, especially with these unfunded liabilities, the Social Security and Medicare. There's no way. You know, you can't borrow your way out of debt. It's just not a possibility. It's impossible. At some point, you have to stop consuming. You have to take the hit. You have to tighten your belt. You have to do more with less. You have to start producing and saving. At some point that happens, whether you choose to do it or it just happens all on its own, where you're forced to. You know, a lot of you guys know that I was severely in debt. Before I finally was no longer able to get any more credit, I had a house, I had new cars, I had new clothes, I had all kinds of stuff. But then the moment that I could no longer get the available, when the interest rates were too high, when nobody was giving me the credit, when I could not get any more financing out there, it was over. There was nothing you could do except for start paying your debts down and stop spending, because you're spending all your money on paying off your debts. And you do that for a long time, and you kind of forget how to spend money. You become addicted to savings. You become scared of the thought that you're going to go back into that state where you couldn't figure out how it was that you were going to go and buy a roll of toilet paper. You had spent every bit of your money. You had no more change in the couch. You had nothing. There was no more pennies in the ashtray. A lot of people don't know what that feeling, and then you still have a job, you still have a house, you still have bills. A lot of people don't know what that feeling is like. And to live like that for years. You know, you work every single day and you have nothing to show for it because you have all this debt from the past that you're trying to pay off. And then one day you do pay that off, and you don't want to go back to that, and so you just keep living like you're broke. And, you try and save as much as you can. Trying to figure out where it is that you invest. It's funny. I was reading maybe I'll do a video on it, because it was a really interesting blog that a guy had sent a link to me for. And it was funny because it was interesting because one of the statements in that blog said, economists, generally for the most part, economists make terrible investors. And I thought about that for a little bit, and it was just like it doesn't surprise me. Like I have no problem buying silver, but I have a hard time trying to commit to investing in a particular direction. When I was paying off debts, that was easy. When you know that you just have to keep paying off your credit card and that's where all the extra money goes, that's easy. You just keep paying on the credit card. But then one day the credit card's paid off and you don't have any debts to pay, and you have to start putting your money towards something, and you don't know where to go with it because you just don't know. You study the economy, you study where, macroeconomics, you try and figure out where the flow of funds are going and, what's going to be the next trend. But ultimately, it's a guess. I mean, Anyway, kind of got off topic there a little bit. Got some mail here for you guys, so I thought I'd open that up for you. This one is from Florida? Huh. I don't want to say the name because it looks like it's from a place of business. It looks like it's from a business. Or, well, that might be... Anyway, I'll just use the guy's first name. How about that? Richard. Richard from Florida. You'll know who you are. All right. Dear Uneducated, please contact me regarding your reading. Regarding your reading problem. Oh, okay. There was a lady at a university at California, Berkeley, that wrote, for those of you who don't know, I have a reading disability where I can only read for about 10 minutes and then my mind just starts tracking off and I have to go back and reread everything I had just read. So yeah, I got like this reading comprehension problem, and I had mentioned it in a video a while back, so this is what he's talking about. To summarize, your problem is a lack of mass. For example, if you study gold, you should have some gold to the left. If you read about tractors, you should have tractor in front of you to touch. Okay, I get it. L. Ron Hubbard stole the lady's book and rewrote it. Basic manuals. Okay. Well, interesting. It's kind of an idea on, and I might very well contact him on that because it looks like he has some kind of good ideas about how to help out with my reading comprehension. One of the things that I would really like to do is start reading books, start reading some of these economic books that some of you guys have sent me, and some of them that I've collected along the way. But, really after, like I tried reading, it's funny, out of all the books that I've read, I've actually read The Creature from Jekyll Island. Now, I didn't read it in one shot. I've read every page of the book, and it took me quite a while to get through it. But it is one of the few books that I have actually read. I've tried reading like Currency Wars and stuff like that, but I just, like most books, I get into it for about 10 minutes and then I'm done. I gotta go do something else. That's why news articles work out so well for me. I can read news articles all day long. But, anyhow. Oh, wow, bro. Who's this from? All right. From Hillsboro. Gentleman from here. All right, I'll put the cover on there. Dude, this is so right on. Hold on, I'll show you. Hey, uneducated economist. Been watching your videos for a while and really appreciated the content you share. I also saw the video in which you paid off your credit card debt. Isn't that funny how we're talking about debt? It's crazy. Okay. Where you paid off your credit card debt. So awesome. Enjoy the small gift. Keep the great content coming. Your neighbor from Hillsboro. Bro, thank you so much. I'll use your first name. Is that cool? Lance? Lance from Hillsboro. Bro, thank you so much. Look at what he got me. A gram of gold. Very cool. Very, very cool. Right on. I don't have a whole lot of gold, so yeah, it's really appreciative, and it's really appreciated somebody taking the time to to share some help on my reading comprehensions and stuff like that, and I really appreciate that. And I'll take a look at that letter and see what we can do, because I really, like I said, I would really enjoy to start reading some economic books out there, because I know there's a lot of good information that I'm missing out on that I could probably use. All right, Uneducated Economist. You guys let me know.